Welcome, my friends, to the West Moody Webcast, where we talk about current events, pop culture, occasional conspiracy theories, occasional car talk, gaming streams, and a vlog about whatever the heck I want to because it is my webcast. Welcome to Conspiracy or Conspiracy. Today, we're going to talk about a very interesting story about did President Richard Nixon ditch his Secret Service detail, pick up Jackie Gleason, who was an avid UFO enthusiast, and take him to Homestead Airforce Base in Florida to show him UFO wreckages and alien bodies. And so joining me is my good friend. Some say he used to own a comic book shop. Gary Beekler of Nerdrotic. Hey, Gary.
Vicious rumors, conspiracies. There's no proof of that. How you doing, Wes?
Doing pretty good. Just enjoying my day.
Yeah. You know what? So am I, by not watching the news at all, but you got me all caught up. So
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. That's okay. You guys got to be aware of these things. I've been deep into Star Trek Discovery, which arguably might be worse than the news we heard today. But that's a conversation for another day. I haven't talked about this subject yet on the Exozone, and it's something I first heard about, I think, in the Inquirer. I read it in the Inquirer when I was a wee little lad. And back then, it was more of even when I was 13, I was like, I want to believe this, but I don't know. But as time has gone on and things have gotten weirder, and the more if you learn a little bit about Jackie Gleason and the kind of person he was, it might have happened. You never know.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting stories. So just in case our chat doesn't know, here's basically how it went down. He was golfing with President Nixon and Jackie Gleason. They're avid golfers. They were golfing together. And allegedly, Richard Nixon shows up without Secret Service in just, a sedan, a plain sedan. And, he knocks on the door. Jackie Gleason gets in. They go to Homestead Airforce Base. Like the base acts like they were expecting him. They drive through to a very desolate corner of the base, and they go through and they walk past, and he shows like wreckage of a flying saucer, allegedly. And I believe they're described as like those refrigerators that hold Coca-Cola with the bubble, except they're laying flat. And inside there are these 2-foot mangled remains of very old 2-foot tall aliens with big heads and big ears. And then he returns Jackie Gleason, and Jackie Gleason apparently had basically a nervous breakdown for a while and went on a serious bender for a good month.
Yeah. I mean, it could be life, but Jackie was into aliens, and none of us know how we'd react if we were actually presented with that situation, especially if it came from the president, right? So you're not thinking this isn't a practical joke. I would probably be pretty happy, to be honest with you, but I don't know. It rocks your worldview. And that's why we believers meet so much resistance on this, is because of of just the line of believability that people don't want to cross when it comes to this. This is a concept that they don't want to enter in a conversation in, and it's actually fear-based, so it gets mocked. That's a heavily mocked, has been. And there's been a lot of skullduggery and a lot of BS from the UFO community itself, a lot of frauds, which hasn't helped anything. But the last 2 years have done a lot to expose the frauds in ufology and to bring it to the forefront through, unfortunately, authoritative sources, which I don't believe anymore. I would believe the National Enquirer before I would believe the New York Times. But this is something we talk about a lot on the Exozone. Is I've never seen a UFO, but I know they exist. There's other civilizations out there. There's too many planets out there that they're finding more and more every day. The exoplanets, the planets in the Goldilocks zone. There's millions of them. There'll soon be billions of them. There's no way there isn't life. That life that advanced either faster, it's older, And there was a scientist or a physicist who just came out with a book, or is coming out with a book. The guy who saw Oumuamua originally, and straight up calling it the first alien visitor to our solar system. Wow. And he's not backing off on that. So more and more people are coming around to it, and it's just a matter of time until we find out what the government knows. And I guess there's something in the COVID bill as well that forces it in 180 days.
Yep. I think, Marco Rubio put something like that in there. Yeah. This is one of those stories that I just, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of the Bob Lazar story. Yep. Because Bob Lazar is like, hey, here's what I've been doing. And he wanted to show them the tests. And it's like, who would make the story up? And a president, and Nixon has a history of ditching his Secret Service. He did that. When he went to go talk to the protesters at the Lincoln Memorial, he ditched his Secret Service details. So,
yeah, we have seen so many people make up stuff and get caught. So we have kind of a baseline on that. And they've written books. They're out there. They're on YouTube right now. While poor people like Dave Cullen are missing. We have frauds on YouTube right now talking about freaking de-aging people and going to alien or bases on Mars and all that stuff, which I don't think does the community any good. And then we have Bob Lazar, who was told essentially the same story for decades, and never really wavered from it. There's certain things he's held back that he's come out with in recent years that have been corroborated. And just go watch his Joe Rogan interview. It's fantastic. You can tell he hates talking about it, and he's nervous, like a normal human being would be. And then he gets more comfortable, and it's riveting, that interview. But like this one, I've always been a fan of Jackie Gleason. Always been secretly a fan since I was a kid, because I watched all those Honeymoon or reruns when we didn't have much to watch. When we were on we had like 6 TV shows that were on rotation all the time. But yeah, he had a UFO house, or a house I would love to have. My God, look at that.
Yeah, it's very cool. It was there were no corners anywhere in that house. It was all round.
It's the kind of house I need to live in, to be honest with you. I'm so clumsy.
Yeah, me too. Love living out in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, Jackie Gleason, yeah, he was in all kinds of great roles, like The Hustler. He was Fats Domino in The Hustler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Better than The Color of Money, though. Color of Money was very much of its time, but he wasn't in that one. But The Hustler, that's a great flick if any of you haven't seen it.
Yep. The Toy, with The Toy, a movie you could not make today, where he purchases Richard Pryor as a toy for his kid and walks around in a Spider-Man costume.
Yep. Heck, you couldn't even probably make Smokey and the Bandit today. His character there was, very rednecky.
Nope. God dang, I love that movie though. It's so good.
It's great flick. Yeah, my grandpa was a truck driver, so he had CBs in the house and all over the place, and it was pretty cool to be able to hop on a CB. Nobody today knows what those are, but
they're cell phones that were that had a weird wire to the dash, and then they would talk funny to each other. They would say like, what do they call cops again? Smokies or Santa Claus. Yep.
Yeah. Breaker, you got yours on. This is, then it'd make up a handle, kind of like we have screen names.
Yep. Yeah, it's like the trucker internet. Now we have like people like Applebee's Minion out there who's driving around her truck dog listening to us all day, which is cool. Cool beans.
Yeah, very cool. But yeah, I really want to believe this story. Now, what's interesting is that the aliens described, they don't seem to fit like the Greys or any other aliens that I've really heard of. Like 2 feet tall, that's pretty small, and then the big ears, that kind of throws me a little bit.
That's because they've never had ears in the past. So that's odd. And I don't think the first thing, they're not the Roswell Greys. obviously, because of big ears. Now, there have been aliens in the past with ears, but that's pretty rare. The grays, the only thing that varies from the grays are the size of their head and their height. And it's anywhere between 4 to 3 feet. Size of the fingers, maybe. But I think most of the time people are seeing the same grays. I fully believe the grays are a drone, are like a flesh drone, a manufactured form of life that is sent, that can handle traveling the vastness of space. And there's been lots of rumors that they are connected to I forgot what planet it was now. I'm brain farting.
Zeta Reticuli?
Zeta Reticuli, yeah. And they're the product of the praying mantis species, which was what nabbed Travis Walton. Yeah, ears is strange, but in that I don't know if you saw this latest the God, it was James Fox, right? His documentary, the one that Doomcock and I reviewed about 2 months ago, where they discussed the African kids. They were white and black kids, by the way. They were at a school in Africa. And they had a UFO encounter, and all the kids saw the aliens. They interacted with the alien, and then they got the kids back. They have footage of not the sighting, but of the interviews when these were kids, and then they got them all together as adults. And it's a story that even the documentary maker was like, I don't want any part of this. And it was told to him by Spielberg, of all people, Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. And what they describe in that one is not an alien I've ever seen. It's it's more like a robot that they described. So, I mean, we've had many different kinds of sightings. So not tripping too much on that one.
Yeah.
But in the original story that I remember in the Inquirer, and I'm trying to go off my memory, they didn't really say much. They just said that Jackie Gleason saw some aliens, and Nixon, and it's his second wife, or his second ex-wife, or fifth ex-wife, sold the story while he was still alive, and he never confirmed nor denied it.
Yeah, I guess there's a second-hand account where he's right around the time he died, where there was someone that he talked to about it, allegedly. But it's secondhand information. But the wife, people have been trying to get a hold of her. Apparently, she was I don't know if she's still alive or she passed away recently. But people were trying to get a hold of her, and she's like, when he told it to me, I believed it hook, line, and sinker. It's been many years. You need to go back and look at the original article, because that's the closest to my recollection. She says now, she says basically, maybe I'm not too sure. Maybe he was out there, out up to no good, and he made up the story to throw me off the trail. But it's like, he was already golfing with the president. Why would you need to make up a story about, seeing aliens, if that's what the case is?
Yeah, I mean, it goes against Nixon wasn't a big alien guy, right? And who knows what he knew, and what I know of Nixon is this is like the last guy on earth who would divulge government secrets, even though he did his own little nefarious things in the background, which is very tame compared to what we have seen in the recent past, or in the last 20 years or so with certain presidents. But Yep. I don't, Jackie Gleason, I never heard of him being like out there. Like if Marlon Brando said he saw aliens, I wouldn't believe it. Marlon Brando was nuts. He was crazy. Jackie Gleason wasn't nuts. He might've been a partier, and he was kind of a, hard drinker and stuff, but he wasn't like the kind of guy who was known to go out there and bullshit. He didn't need to. Jackie freaking Gleason, dude. This guy was a badass in his time. And, he carried a ton of weight in Hollywood and a ton of respect. So sure, it could be a story, but I think Jackie Gleason could have thought of something better. Like, I was going to meet with an agent for a role or something. But the Nixon thing, Nixon was starstruck though. He's the kind of guy, he had Elvis come over too. Yeah,
boy, the Elvis story is another kind of weird one. I guess Elvis was angling to become like a DEA agent so that that would basically anesthetize him from um, getting drugs. It's really weird.
His pharmacy full. Yeah, Elvis was never going to go to jail. Nobody was ever going to arrest Elvis for anything.
Yeah,
we don't have people like that around anymore. Superstars like that around, but no human being would arrest Elvis and get away with it. So, yeah.
Very true.
He was out very late one night. I did not know who he was with. He had been in South Florida, so he saw the aliens in Florida, which is odd. I don't even know if there's a base in Florida. There probably is, unless they were being transferred somewhere. Unless that's where they were found. But he said they were old.
Yes,
the thing is they were old.
Yeah, they're old and mangled. We drove to the far end of the base in a segregated area, finally stopping near a well-guarded building. The security police saw us coming and just sort of moved back as we passed them. This is the guy that he supposedly talked to close to his death. We passed them and entered the structure. There were a number of labs, passed through the first before we entered a section where Nixon pointed out what he said was wreckage from a flying saucer, enclosed in several large cases. Next, we went into an inner chamber, and there were 6 or 8 of what looked like glass-topped Coke freezers. Inside them were the mangled remains of what I took to be children. Then, on closer examination, I saw that some of the figures looked quite old. Most of them were terribly mangled, as if they'd been in an accident.
And I wonder what accident it was from. Now, Roswell, obviously, most famous crash. There are many, many, many others. Missouri, Arizona, multiple crashes in New Mexico. We had crashes in Mexico, and it gets murkier past that. But all Pennsylvania, we had the Bell appearance in Pennsylvania.
There's supposed to have been a very old one in Texas before the turn of the 20th century.
Yes.
Jim Mars was talking about it.
They buried the body and then they moved the gravestone. That's right. The one that hit the windmill wasn't Stevensville. That's a modern one. It was, I can't remember which one it was. That one's fascinating because they went to, I believe it was Ancient Aliens or no, Giorgio Tsoukalos did an alien hunter sideshow for a little while. It was on that one, and they went there and they couldn't find the grave. I think they got close, but they won't let them dig it up, which, some little town. I can understand. They don't want them desecrating some graveyard for some wacky, it's aliens guy, but it would be, it's interesting. That one's a fascinating story though.
Yeah, because you have a newspaper account of it, and they mentioned they were not of this world in the obit or the story.
Aurora.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Maybe I'll drive through Aurora when I'm hunting for homes. Maybe I'll move there. Do my own investigation. I'll just go there in the middle of the night and dig it up. I'll put it right back. It's no big deal. But yeah, it's supposedly in the Aurora Cemetery. Yeah, 1897 UFO crash baffles scientist.
Here we go. Let's pull this up. Yeah, that's a great story because that's before all of this big government apparatus that we had. This is just some folks, that saw something, and they just wrote down what they saw.
Isn't it amazing? Then less than 100 years ago, we didn't have a giant government apparatus. We didn't pay federal freaking tax. We opened up businesses. Like you wanted to open up a business, you got a building and you opened a business. It's pretty crazy.
Well, we may be going back to that depending on how things shake out here.
I am one of those people that thinks it's probably going to end up being, I'm not going to say just fine, because it depends on what your definition of just fine. But I think this storm will pass. I think a lot of it's being really trumped up by the mainstream media. So, I mean, there's serious stuff going on. There is, but I think what sucks is we can't go into it. I can't even freaking talk about it. If we even start talking about it, we get in trouble here. That's the biggest problem of them all that we need to find a solution to. Like Parler got shut down, so I got to decide if I'm going to go to Gab or Minds or somewhere. I don't know. You ever been on Minds? Is it any good?
I haven't. I've been trying Gab. I like the interface on Gab, but they're just overloaded right now, and so I keep getting it's just like loading.
Yeah, I couldn't load it today either, so I don't think it's ready for what's to come. Yeah, hopefully there is a freaking based billionaire out there. That's all we can hope for. Unfortunately, all the billionaires are like Jack Dorsey, who's microdosing acid somewhere, not in this country. Yeah, so a windmill demolished, and this was, what's the date on that one? April 19th, 1897, Aurora, in something county.
You grab the link here.
We got the original news thing here. About 6:00 this morning, the entry risers of Aurora were astonished. Oh, the early risers of Aurora were astonished at the sudden appearance of the starship, which has been sailing through the county. It was traveling due north and much nearer the Earth than ever before. So it had been flying over for a while. Evidently, some of the machinery was out of order, or it was making a speed of only 10 or 12 miles an hour and gradually settling towards the Earth. So it was like floating towards it. I wonder if it was just a balloon. And gradually settling towards the Earth. It sailed directly over the public square, and when it reached the north part of town, collided with the tower of Judge Proctor's windmill. It collided with Judge Proctor's windmill and went to pieces with a terrible explosion, scattering debris over several acres of ground, wrecking the windmill and water tank, and destroying the judge's flower garden.
Damn asshole aliens.
Some bitch. Damn. Then the pilot of the ship is supposed to have been the only one on board, and while his remains are sadly disfigured, enough of his original Yeah,
there we go. Enough of the original has been picked up to show that he was not an inhabitant of this world.
No. And yeah, I can't, like, my eyes are terrible, so I got to blow this up.
Yeah, I don't have the best eyesight in the world either. But
it was too badly wrecked to form any conclusion as to the construction or motive of power. It was built of an unknown metal, resembling somewhat a mixture of aluminum and silver, and it must have weighed several tons. Okay. Yeah, so 12 miles an hour, several tons. I don't know. The town is full of people today who are viewing the wreck and gathering specimens of the strange metal from the debris. The pilot's funeral will take place at noon tomorrow.
Yeah, here's the tombstone, and you can see kind of an interesting shape there. I can't tell if that's a cigar-shaped one or a saucer-shaped one. What's your take on that?
That looks like a saucer to me.
Yeah, same. And it almost kind of looks like what Bob Lazar drew, a very crude version of it. Maybe that's more of the Jello mold one. I don't know.
I think they could have done a better job for the poor guy, but
well, I mean, he did destroy the judge's flower garden, so
he did, that son of a bitch.
Yep.
If that would be bizarre. So yeah, in the 1800s, they're just like, we're going to pick up the stuff. So that means a bunch of townspeople have stuff, like some descendant somewhere has stuff. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be very cool. I hadn't even thought of that. Now supposedly, I think Jim Mars was talking about it, but he seemed to think that the government at some point had gone out there and looked for stuff also. So
I'm sure well, I mean, would the government do that in the 1800s? It would take them for weeks to get there. There was no, unless it was military, it would have had to have been army, right? Whatever the closest army base, and they would probably collect it. But there was no top secret crap back then. They would have just like thrown it away.
Yeah, well, he was saying, I guess after the National Security Act, that stuff. That's or shortly before that, that's when they went out to hunt around.
Okay, because like back in the late 1800s, I believe they still thought there was people on Mars. So, or maybe that was a little earlier. But yeah, that's the I am absolutely sure that our government has stuff. I have heard enough stories through just when I started the Exozone. Just starting the Exozone, start getting. That's where I still get the most emails. Like I don't get emails from like insiders from Disney or anything. Occasionally, but I get Exozone emails all the time. They're great. But just through my, I've been into this subject since I watched In Search of as a kid. I bought my first book on the subject when I was 12. And it's probably the subject I've read the most books on, and I've talked to the most people, and almost all of my friends have a sighting. Mrs. Nerdrotic has a sighting. My ex-father-in-law was a pilot. He told me all kinds of crazy stories. So it's not anything I doubt. I don't doubt the government has stuff, but the government, what people bring up the most is the government is way too incompetent to keep a secret. And I agree. I absolutely agree with that. But you got to think that incompetence is a shield as well. It's so compartmentalized that it's very easy to keep something secret from the ignorant masses in the government, right? So you have a certain amount of people who are constantly in control. We have politicians who are there forever, but you got to think more of the military apparatus, the military industrial complex. There's guys who have been there for decades who are truly in charge of things. The president almost, is a figurehead. Many people have said that but as far as the apparatus of the government, there are things the president does not know, will never know, because they leave. They're just regular citizens.
Yeah, what's your take on Majestic 12? Majestic 12. Those guys. Those the ones really running the show?
I think at one time, yeah. I think it's morphed into a few more things. There's been some pretty interesting documentation on that. I pretty much fall on the side of whatever. I'm a Richard Dolan guy. I think he does the best research out there as far as any ufologist is concerned, because his background is research and history. And he's brought up some, he brings up paperwork, he brings up evidence, and it's out there. There's tons of it out there that, and that's the thing is we talk about disclosure all the time, and it's happened. It's just people don't want to believe it. It's not a UFO landing on your lawn.
Yep.
Majestic 12, I think, was a thing. I don't think they are now. I think it's something completely different with a different name.
Oh yeah. They have a habit of doing that, or they'll run things concurrently. But probably, they were the ones that maybe laid out the initial groundwork on how to deal with that stuff.
Oh yeah. Like everything changed in 47, whatever it was, if it was, Roswell, or which I think it was. And I don't think Roswell was their first crash. I think it was the one that said, okay, we need to do something. But there was also other stuff happening as well. It wasn't just all UFOs that created this giant military industrial complex. It was, we were just coming out of World War II. We were supposedly the only ones with nuclear weapons for a little while. So, and we needed better security and they just used it as an opportunity to get more control. But the UFOs were part of it. Absolutely part of it.
For sure. Yeah, things really changed. I mean, the national security state, all that stuff. It really, really changed the way our country operates. And, we're still living with that today, unfortunately.
Oh, it's going to get worse. So much worse.
Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the actions of last summer help facilitate in exactly what they said they were fighting against, which they really weren't. So it's ushering in this huge, I don't even know what you call it, technocracy, I guess. I think we're here. It's arrived. And, it's kind of up to us. And Jeremy said it in a video, and we had discussed it in length, as we created these things, through convenience. Now, they made it very convenient, but it's not unlike, the housing bubble that burst a while back. A lot of people said predatory lending. Well, you didn't have to sign the paper. Sure. If somebody makes things easy for you, you don't have to say yes. If somebody opens a door for you, you don't have to walk through.
Yeah, I saw that thing coming in 2005, that bubble burst. As soon as those pick-a-pays rolled out, I was like, oh, this isn't going to happen.
Oh, no, I saw it coming too. And there was nothing you can do. It's like it was watching this slow motion tsunami come at you, and it was just a matter of time. And they kicked the can down the road a couple, in 2006 and 2007, and then 2008. It ended overnight. It was crazy. The economy was doing good one day, and then it stopped the next. And it was literally because of the headline in the paper. It was a perception thing, which a lot of this is, to be honest with you. A lot of our reality is our perception, and that's what is controlled through the legacy media that is severely compromised. So that's what runs our quote unquote narrative right now. And that's why I think a lot of the UFO stuff is starting to come out, because it will serve as a distraction to something else. And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw the New York Times article talking about the Tic Tac, and we did an exozone on it. And the question everybody was asking was the one I was asking: what's really going on? What are they? They're giving us some truth, but they're not giving us all the truth. I think it's part of the distraction.
Yeah, I caught that episode. That was a great episode. Now, do you think that's one of ours, or do you think that is an ET craft? From
1897 or now?
The Tic Tac.
The Tic Tac. I think it's from another planet or another dimension. There's no way ours can do what Dennis Fravor said. That thing. I think that guy's an impeccable witness, a good American, the best of the best. What we have to offer, an actual hero, one of the best pilots out there. He just strikes me as extremely credible. And what he described, along with the radar operator, I'm forgetting his name, who was equally, just had, you could tell these guys are of character. What they described, what those things did, if we had that technology, we would be incorporating it in other places, making lots of money and dominating the planet right now. There's no way you would just keep that secret. There's just no way. And then test it on our own military. That's something that we probably could have gotten away with even a couple of decades ago. It's not something you can get away with now. It just can't. It's dangerous. But going from the atmosphere, or going from the surface of the water to the atmosphere and vice versa in under a second without a sonic boom is impossible. It's impossible. We don't have any machinery that can do that. And there's no propulsion. It was just it's a Tic Tac. And they said that's got a little shimmy around it, and it's able to just it's almost like disappearing, like apparating, like the thing goes that fast. I just don't think we have anything like that. And if we did, we would incorporate it in everything we had. Imagine little drones going that fast, delivering stuff. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of possibilities with it. Maybe we can only make a limited number of them. I think when we first rolled out the atomic bomb, we only had like a handful of them after we bombed Japan. But it's tough to say. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. It certainly behaves the way Bob Lazar said that they behave when he was talking about the physics of it.
Remember what Bob said was basically that UFO was dropping a combustion engine in 1800, or even he said, some what did he say? Something nuclear, he said he said if you drop something, I forgot what it was. It was whatever powers the nuclear power plant. If you drop that into the Renaissance period, people would go in to figure out what it is, and that person would die, and then the next person to go check on them would go die. That's why he told his story. He said, we are messing with things we do not understand. And he said the amount of power it took to do what that UFO did, that we did not understand. The only thing we understood was how to turn it on and turn it off, and we could fly it a little bit. That's about it. But he was brought on because somebody died. And essentially the guy blew up, and they called it a nuclear test.
Yeah.
It was such a big explosion. It was a nuclear test. And what he was insinuating is the kind of power that's involved in creating anti-gravity could probably wipe out Vegas from where they are and more. So we're playing with things we don't understand. And that's where he said it would probably stay when he left. Now it's been a couple of decades, and they've probably brought in some pretty clever people and figured it out. Maybe they did, but it's still from alien tech. Supposedly, of course, we're talking, if Mama Susan's listening, we're just talking about theories and rumors and scuttlebutt. Nothing, no need to fact check, because we don't know.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, again, the Bob Lazar story, when you're talking about the government, if you learn, like Snowden, okay? So the government had that program. It was very compartmentalized, and Snowden, he didn't go through the formal education the other people did. And they picked Snowden specifically because he was out of the box, and they gave him a test, and he cleaned everybody's clock in the test. So the government does that. There's precedent for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, they listen, there's little, those kids who, those genius kids, they're just born. They know how to play piano. They can write, a suite. They can, they start physics when they're like 7. They pluck those little kids, and they give them work, and then when they get older, they become smarter adults. And we have that, at our constant resources. So yeah, we're the military is always 20 years ahead of what we know pretty consistently. So there's jets flying around that, we've never seen. And I've told the story before. I remember the first time I saw a stealth, and this wasn't a bomber. This was a stealth fighter. So this was before the stealth bomber was declassified. Now everybody knew it existed. They even had a toy of it. But nobody knew the stealth fighter existed, and they flew one right over Carlsbad, California. I was driving home one day. This was in the late 80s. I was in my 67 Cutlass Supreme, and this freaking UFO. I thought it was a UFO, man. And a bunch of us pulled over, and we could still see it and we can hear it. So, and that's when the guys, all that was a stealth fighter, and it just looked like a black disc wing thing flew over an insane speed, and it was low altitude too. I don't know what the hell the guy was doing, but this was over to La Costa Avenue. There's a lagoon right there, and it flew right over the lagoon and then took the hell off right towards the desert.
Wow,
so
that's pretty cool to see that
back
then.
Very cool to see.
Yeah. Now I think that Exozone episode where you guys were talking about the Tic Tac, I was in the chat in that one, and it's funny because I saw a flying triangle, right? And someone in the chat had mentioned it before I mentioned it, and they saw it exactly where I saw it the same time I saw it.
Where was that?
It was in Northern California where Highway 99 and Highway 70 split in the sight lines of the Sac International Airport. It looked somewhat translucent, and it had at each of the corners it had kind of a yellowish dot or light, and in the center there was a red light, and then there was two 737 looking planes, and they went at basically a right angle to it. One went to the north and one went to the east, and they banked like they were trying to see if they could see it. And I've seen other footage of the exact same phenomenon, flying triangle, somewhat translucent. You used to be able to find them on YouTube. Now you can't.
Yeah.
And there would be a 737 plane that would fly, say, east, and then one that would fly, say, north, and they would bank exactly the same way that I saw it. And I think it was specifically put in the sight line of Sac International Airport so that people wouldn't really be able to spot it and they wouldn't think anything of it.
Crazy. Now, the triangles, I think the smaller ones might be ours. And then there's this isn't really a triangle. The thing that flew over the Tucson lights, that giant boomerang thing that was, massive, like a mile wide. That's definitely not ours. There's no way we have something that big. But the triangles, I'm kind of thinking they're ours.
I think it's probably ours too. It was hovering there completely silently. There was absolutely not a sound from that flying triangle. And I do live close to an Air Force base, so I do know that they have experimental stuff, or they had experimental stuff out there. I think, the Blackbirds used to operate out of that Air Force base, so wouldn't be surprised.
Well, it's been so quiet over the last 4 years. We're still in some conflicts, but we're kind of winding those down, and we didn't really go to war for the last 4 years. That was nice, except for with each other for a little bit last year. But I think the military industrial complex is going to start ramping up. Maybe we'll see more stuff. I've been dying to see a UFO. I want to see. Anytime I go, I'm glad I'm back in San Diego now, where I can see the sky. And because in San Francisco, you can't see anything. You don't see sunsets. You don't see. It's just foggy most of the time. But every time I go to the desert, I go to Palm Springs, I'll go out to Vegas, and I'll go out in the middle of nowhere with my binocs, with my, with my night vision binoculars and look for stuff. Never see anything though. Damn it.
Well, our very own Final Death Star, I guess, saw something out by Joshua Tree. He was talking about lights. He actually, that ended up on a UFO website, I believe, a UFO group.
Oh, I want to see that. Yeah, Joshua Tree's awesome. I love camping out there. It's beautiful, and that would be a place you could see it. There's no lights anywhere around, so. But even when I was out there, I didn't see anything. I have the worst luck with that.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for a UFO that night, that's for sure. But I lived out in the middle of nowhere, so I could, lots of stars. One thing I learned from living out in the middle of nowhere is that I could see how people used to the phases of the moon used to be really important for planning travel when you're like on horse and buggy times, because it gets dark, man, when there's a new moon. Totally dark. I mean, the stars, you can see everything. You can see satellites. You can see tons of stars. You can see the Milky Way. You can see shooting stars. It's very cool. That's very cool. But here's something that nobody ever believes me when I tell them. So I used to live out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of these walnut orchards, right? And there's a clearing in the orchard. Well, on full moons, I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. It's true. Both predator and prey alike, they would go to this clearing in the orchard, and they would all just like chill out together. Coyotes, deer, badgers, raccoons, possums, the birds would be out there, and they would all just like moonbathe in the middle. Like they would take a break from whatever they were doing, and they would just all chill out in the middle of this clearing. I've never seen anything like it.
That is bizarre. So it's like an armistice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they used to have those cartoons where, they'd punch the clock. Hey, Earl. Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like, it's just like the cartoon, they punch the clock. And it's like, yeah, Bob. Hey, Earl, we're off. They would just chill out in the clearing.
That's cool as hell. You need to get pictures of that.
I wanted to.
That is strange.
live
Because
out.
that can't be the only place. That must be some thing. I don't know. Probably has something to do with the moon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking they're just it was weird, but it was very cool. It was very cool. Yeah, yeah. I'd like to live in the middle of well, not too far in the middle of nowhere again, but I would like to live out in the country again.
Yeah, I'm done with cities, man. Getting the hell out of it as soon as I can, which isn't. It's just not anything I can do quickly.
Yeah.
I've never lived in another state, so I have to go and I'll have to go stay in a town for like a week. It's kind of hard when you're making content. And but I'm just gonna bring all my equipment with me when I hit the road. Little green screen. You guys won't even notice that I'm not home.
Hey, worst case scenario, just whip out the phone and do a phone video.
Yeah, it depends on the internet, I guess. Wherever I go, I'm gonna have to probably have my own. I'll do the Tim Pool thing. That costs a fortune, but it is part of the job. The internet at my place right now is it's wonky. I hate that, but there's nothing I can do about it. I've had it rewired. They've come out a couple of times. You would think San Diego would be better for that, but it's not. The internet was pretty good in San Francisco. But that's all because all the techie boys are there or were there. But yeah, hopefully wherever I go, I'll be able to again see the sky. And there's lots of UFOs in Texas. If we have them in California, it's impossible to see. I've told the story that I might have seen a couple, but I can't be sure. And I used to drive up and down California quite a bit when I worked in LA. When I worked for Technicolor, I used to go every weekend. Go home every weekend from LA. So I lived part-time in LA, came home on the weekend, saw my family for like a minute, went to the comic shop, make sure everything this was right after the housing bubble burst and it caused the recession. I had to get a job and run the comic store. So every weekend I drove because I hate flying. So I drove from LA to San Francisco and back, and I would go up down 5 and you'd see all kinds of crazy stuff, but it's mostly planes. There's just planes in the sky. There's always helicopters in the sky. There's all kinds of crazy shit going on. So you never know if it's a UFO or not. Yeah. But I saw one thing going straight up, but sometimes things that look like they're going straight up, they're actually not. It depends on your vantage point.
Yep. Yeah. I hate flying too. I'm a very bad flyer. I have to, my dad used to live in San Diego, so I used to drive down there and, I took 5 a couple of times, but I usually end up taking 99 because there's little towns. 5 gets a little bit too desolate for me. And, I always seem to get like wedged in between those big rigs, which on those 2-lane roads kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah. That's the Sacramento. If you come from Sacramento, 99's better, but I got bored of it too. I started taking 101, which takes 3 hours longer, but it's just nicer. It's a beautiful drive. But no, I only fly if I have to. If I'm going to die, it's going to be going to like Egypt or something. That's worth getting in, or going to Sicily, which was the last time I flew, but not for like a little jaunt down to San Diego. You end up saving. I got so good at it that if you fly, you end up saving a couple of hours. You still got to wait for your plane, get on, blah, blah, blah. I just got my car and went, and I got it down to like 5.5 hours. I can get to as soon as I cross the Golden Gate Bridge, I can get my ass down there quick. I knew when to go, what time to go. And yeah.
Yeah. I always made that drive at night, and I always made it when right around when I'd hit the center of the trip when Coast to Coast would come on. That was like my favorite.
I remember. Yeah. One time I was on going down and I heard Giorgio on Coast to Coast for the first time. And that's when we were talking. And that was cool as hell. I used to be buddies with Giorgio Tsoukalos. Met him through a mutual friend when he was poor as dirt. He was living in my friend's house. He had a mattress with no bed frame. His mattress was surrounded by a bunch of books and candles because he's freaking woo-woo. But what's funny about him is he's also like a total dude bro. He's like a weightlifter. And he's a total like, hey, brah, and he loves the ladies. but yeah, hung out with them a bunch of times. And that's when he was just doing his I forgot the name, his little magazine, his little monthly magazine that he does, which I think he still does. Before he became the executive producer of Ancient Aliens, but I worked on he was prepping a video to present it to I guess to sell the show to people, because he's buddies with Eric Von Daniken. He's a protege of Eric Von Daniken. So his sizzle reel, essentially, to present for Ancient Aliens was directed by my friend Kat at the time, and I lit the interview. So when he did an interview with some girl that Kat hired, and I went there and lit the scene. It's still on my show reel, which is on the internet somewhere if you want to look for it. I think it's the 2011 show reel. Yeah. And then the guy just blew up. It was crazy watching that happen, man. Just like turn from, renting a room in somebody's house to buying a mansion in LA in no time. It's insane.
Did it change him?
Yeah, I didn't hear from him that much after that. We used to talk to each other, and then he got, but I ran into him at Contact in the Desert, and it didn't seem like it. He was perfectly nice. I didn't want to bug him, actually. I saw he had a big line of people. I saw him there, and I'm like, if the line dies down, I'll go and say hi to him or something like that. But he saw me and he pulled me over. He's like, "Get over here, dude." And now he seemed like the same Giorgio to me. I understand why he didn't call me anymore, because you get, dude, once you get in the Hollywood scene, it's probably not unlike, well, it's probably like your YouTube channel blowing up times 10,000, right? So you get new people, and then your life totally freaking changes, and your workload like quadruples. Yeah, I can understand why it's hard to do that. It's hard to keep track of stuff. He's probably got, fan mails, emails, all kinds of stuff. That's, like I said, 1,000 times worse than like your average YouTuber, with, not like a million sub YouTuber, but, a lower middle class guy like me. So
that's very cool. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. No, Giorgio was cool. I would love to get him on the Exozone. I bet you we could. Probably. Yeah, I haven't tried.
Just a little audacity, man. Got to ask.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that the Facebook fact checker agreed to come on the show. There you go. That ties back to, so yeah, you're talking about the Inquirer. Well, it's interesting because in that interview that we were doing with him, he did a story on Epstein in 2014. Now, other people had been covering it before, but he used to work for CNN, and they were getting rid of people 55 and older. So he quit, but he quit too soon because they were giving everybody golden parachutes. Oh. And he landed at the Inquirer, and he was almost kind of like lamenting the fact that he could only do a real story at the Inquirer.
Really?
Like, yeah, he's so embarrassed he doesn't even put Inquirer on there. He puts the parent company of the Inquirer on his resume and his bio.
No, the Inquirer is probably much more legit now. They should think about that. It's I'm forgetting the name of the nobody's probably into Harry Potter here, but at the end of Harry Potter, when the Ministry of Magic gets taken over by Voldemort, it turns out that the crazy paper, the Inquirer version of the magic universe, ends up becoming the legit newspaper, because the legit newspaper was taken over by Voldemort. And it's kind of funny that that's happening through freaking Harry Potter. Yes, I know Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter. Read it with my kids. But that's, yeah, like I said, but we don't need anything in print now. We just got to find each other if we're not getting canceled. And the one thing we have to do is be smart. We have to be very, very smart right now. We got to watch out what we say. Maybe work out our own little lingo. So what we have been doing, basically. It's funny that you can actually drop F-bombs after the first couple of minutes on a live stream or a video. Doesn't really affect your stuff unless you're just throwing out a string of them, right? But if it's once, the algorithm's probably not even going to pick it up. But when I started saying istophobe, that's the one thing I noticed. Like, I made a huge mistake on one video, and I was like saying ist and phobe and cell and all that, and the video just got crushed. And it was a Joker video, and every Joker video I was doing great. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started really figuring out that, God, that's the words they hook you on. It's so strange. But no, because they want to control the speech here. They have been for a while. So there's ways around it, though. We just need to be smart.
Yep. Well, did you see I know that you saw what was going to happen. You saw it coming, and I think I saw it coming. But now that it actually is happening with the pace that it's happening, is that a surprise? I mean, now that it's actually happening, is it like, does it feel a little weird to be seeing it happening so quickly? Or
it does. This is just straight up out in the open. Which is incredibly dangerous, because I think humans are filled with hubris. They are, especially when they get that rich and that powerful. And there's going to be they didn't have to do this. There's not like the president was leaving office. Okay. So they didn't need to do any of this. But they decided they have been striking, and they've been using opportunities to push their narrative, and they've been very successful at it. And I fear they might be major consequences to it. I hope not. I don't want my kid to be growing up in strife. But then again, over here in San Diego, you can't even tell anything's going on. You're not watching the news. People are going to work. You got restaurants disobeying orders, which is good to see.
Oh yeah.
Certain places that are just saying F it, and they can't stop everybody. They can't. And that's so I said, yes, power's just too. It is. It's so tempting. It's like, it's the ring, man. It's that's what the ring personified in Lord of the Rings was power, but it can be used for a lot of things, addiction or whatever, but that's all it was just power and corruption, all fit into a nice little ring. And anybody who got around it, it exposed your character immediately. Right. So, poor Boromir was more susceptible to it, but he was more susceptible to it because of all his grief and all the, strife he went through. And then others were just bad, naturally, like Saruman. Saruman was he had bad intentions, and even hearing about it got him to be corruptive. And that's all it takes.
Yep, man. Do you think this is going to wake up a lot of people seeing this?
Ooh, yeah. People are waking up from this. Is it going to be the amount of people needed? No, that's the thing. So, I talk about pop culture. Okay. A lot of us talk about pop culture, but there's always been a bigger issue underlying everything that we talk about. And what I do is I'll talk about the things I love, but there's a much bigger issue that's being baked into our scripts, that's being put out there by our quote unquote creatives, who are just cogs in these giant machines and this narrative has been shifted and pushed heavily for the last 5 years, with the full backing of everyone in big tech and Hollywood and everything. And that's what created, the hashtag the fandom menace. And it was through this simple little thing, a Star Wars movie, but it's always been bigger than a Star Wars movie. It's always been bigger than Ryan Johnson or Kathleen Kennedy. It's always been a bigger issue. It's just, we were trying to deal with this issue in pop culture because that's where the infiltration does the most damage, and that's where you get through to the most people. And that's what we were trying to do, is wake people up through that, right? Plus, it's a safe little arena. We're going to be pretty much left alone because the politics, that's what's going to get all the focus. But it's really just trying to get through to people and wake people up through pop culture. You know, like this stuff is happening. I saw it started happening through comics. And I don't think, like I said on Unsafe Space, I don't think it was just one guy with puppet strings. I think it's just a bunch of like-minded people creating a situation where it's easier for somebody with the puppet strings to come in. So it wasn't started by the nefarious entity with the puppet strings, but they came in and swooped on the opportunity once it became a giant echo chamber, and they got rid of the dissenting voices. Much easier to control people. Yeah. And that's what we have been trying to do over the last couple of years is wake people up through that. Also trying to bring our entertainment back to something that's entertaining during, tough times like that. It's nice to escape once in a while, but that's where they get you get through a society through their culture, right? And our culture is pop culture, and that's where they get them young. They get them, and we're fighting against that now. There's too many people who still don't believe it's happening. There's partisans out there who just don't want to look at this is my team. I don't want to criticize my team. That's the other one too. That's why, everybody make their own personal decision, but I'm very open about that. I'm not partisan. Like, I don't play the team game when it comes to politics or my life or anything. I think it's really counterintuitive to being a free thinker. And I don't like having my scorecard fill out. You could certainly lean one way or the other. But for me personally, there's certain issues I completely disagree with both parties on fundamentally. And I always fall on the side of, don't tell me what to do and I won't tell you what to do. Just leave me alone is mostly what I want from my government. I don't want any help. Fix my roads. Sure, I'll pay for that. That's about it though. But we're fighting against an entire culture right now that wants to be taken care of. And that's a tough one because there's a lot of those freebies that are being offered. And people just want convenience and to be taken care of. And what we have ahead of us now is going to be very inconvenient. And
to say the least,
there's just a lot of people who are not ready for that, not ready for the fight, not ready to sacrifice. They're too worried about losing stuff. Well, we've already lost it. So, your stuff, your job, your business, it's gone. So, I mean, like, what else are we going to just sit back and let them take? Yeah. But, as like at jobs I had before, I would, especially after I owned the comic shop and I was a boss and I saw the world a different way. It was very difficult to be an employee because I saw when the bosses were incompetent, when they were full of it. And it's very tough to be a good little employee when you are, wait a minute, you're full of shit. This plan's not going to work. And I wasn't a 25-year-old kid anymore where I'm just going to like listen to whatever the boss says. And I was, I had an analytical mind and I'm like, no, this situation's not going to work. And it got me in a lot of trouble. But, there was one situation where I was working at Toyota, looking at the paycheck and I'm like, this is not right. This is just not right. So I went home, went through my W-2s and they weren't paying us a percentage of our commission from certain part sales. So I caught them on this and I'm like, I took it right to the boss. I'm like, for a year, I have not been paid this certain amount, and none of us have been, and we need to get paid. And for months, they told me I was reading it wrong. I was just reading it wrong. I'm like, no, I'm not reading it wrong. You guys owe us money. And this is a serious issue, and you need to do something about this, or I'm going to do something about it. So once I said I'm going to do something about it, they tried to make life very hard on me. They couldn't outright fire me. And then eventually an auditor came down and figured out that, oh yeah, we owed you a bunch of money and we got it. And I was trying to get my coworkers to go along with me. I'm like, guys, they're stiffing us on this pay. We all have to speak up together. The only way this is going to change is we speak up together. And none of them would do it. They didn't want to rock the boat. They were worried about their job. I'm like, you're getting screwed out of thousands of dollars here. But they were too afraid to say something. And then when they got paid, they're like, oh, you were right all along, which is music to my ears. But, like, seriously, I'm like, no, guys, we could have gotten this sooner if you would have freaking worked with me. And none of us would have had any repercussions at all because we were right, but they were still afraid. And that's what we're dealing with now on a much bigger level. There's a bunch of us going, hey, there's something going wrong here. And we need all of you to kind of come in and help. And people are just too afraid. They're like, no, I don't want to get in this fight. I don't want to get involved. And you can't always avoid a fight. You can't.
That is very true. Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I've gotten into trouble calling the bosses out on crap. Also, I don't have much of a filter. And again, also I've been a business owner, so yeah, I don't fall for that crap.
No, and it's the ability to just see through bullshit. Some people walk. You know what? I don't mean to be judgmental about it. People live their lives. They want to live their lives, but even I was guilty of not paying attention to my local politicians are. I think that's the biggest lesson we can take away from all of this over the last year is local politicians are something we need to pay way more attention to than a president. Because who's affected your life the most? Your county supervisors, your mayors, your governors. That's who has direct power over your life. I mean, Trump had no impact on my life whatsoever, other than I wasn't paying a lot of taxes, which was great. But Gavin Newsom had a huge impact on my life, major impact on my life. So, look for the tune to change over the next few months. Look for them to start opening stuff up. You're going to see stuff starting to open up, whether the coof is out there or not. I think Cuomo saying what he said today was a huge thing. So I think a lot of us are going to go back, which will piss me off even worse, because, my wife's business is gone. And there's no getting it back. We don't get any freaking bailouts. We don't get shit. As a matter of fact, our taxes are going to be due, and they're going to want them to pay it. They're going to want us to pay them on time. And, usually I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I felt last year I was a sucker when I did it. I'm going to feel like a double sucker this year.
Yeah. Now, do you think it's a coincidence that now that we have a change of administration, that's when they're deciding to open up?
No coincidence. I fully expected it. As a matter of fact, I think Cuomo maybe spoke like 10 days too soon. I was expecting it at the end of the month, that all of a sudden, that's what my wife had heard too. Stuff is going to start opening up here in California slowly over the next month or so, and then by March, it's going to be pretty open. Which I'm happy for people, and I'm pissed, like furious.
I bet. Yep. Well, I mean, there's that recall petition. It's got 1 million signatures. I think they need 1.3 million to get that on the ballot.
Oh, they'll get it. I think. But he's going to be up for election in a year. But if that thing goes through and they can get it pumped through fast enough, and we're still locked down, I think they have a chance. It's a possibility. Because enough people are pissed at that guy. And the one thing that did him in was the French Laundry. That turned a lot of people who were originally on his side against him. And it's because it was the French Laundry specifically. And a lot of the elite in San Francisco know what that is. And I guess the rest of the country know what it is too. It's an effing expensive restaurant Gavin Newsom's not rich enough to get in that place. he had to probably go with a friend. So, and it's a $350 deposit just to go. And I think the cheapest plate is $700.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he was there with a medical lobbyist too, ironically enough, all maskless and, not socially distancing. Yeah, I definitely you could feel a change in the way people felt after that French Laundry thing. And then his response to it, man, he's such a douchebag. Got up there like, I got caught, but you need to stay locked down.
Yeah. I got to practice what I preach. Mrs. Neurotic, so at least you admit you preach, you son of a bitch. I've known Gavin. He was my mayor. I stood a foot away from the guy when he was at my the salon that my wife worked in. Total douchebag. Guy's always been a douchebag. He's your prototypical douchebag politician. Would screw over his best friend. Did screw over his best friend.
Yeah.
Slept with his best buddy's wife, who was his campaign manager. But that is the kind of guy you want running, a state. He'll never make it as president. That's the one thing I'm pretty happy about. But they want small business gone. They do, because that is the backbone of this country. It is freedom. Small business and being able to get into your car and drive wherever the hell you want. These are things they want to take away. And the only thing keeping that from happening is states' rights. States' rights. And you're going to see, like, Florida has been pretty, I guess, great. Their COOF numbers haven't been as bad as California's, which is saying something. California's been essentially locked down in some form or another since March of last year. And Florida's been wide ass open, not full capacity, but wide open. And their numbers are down. So who's to say? Maybe it's got something to do with the weather. I doubt it. I think it's got something to do with probably herd immunity and people getting out there. Shit, I just found out tonight. My mom's nursing home. 4 people there who work there have COVID now.
Yikes!
So yeah, we got to lock her in her room, and I don't know what the hell we're gonna do. I don't know if we got to get her out of there. I just found out tonight. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get her out of there for a little while, that might be for the best, because you never know, at those places, how seriously they take that.
We got plenty of room here, so there we go. That is a message from. Hang on, just a second.
Yeah, it's interesting about Florida because they do have a very large elderly population. So, I mean, that says a lot.
Yep. Thinking about going there. Thinking about going, visiting Jeremy, Jay, going to freaking an amusement park. Sounds kind of fun. What's up, Stone Cold Jeremy? Apparently in the future, I am not going to win anything and I will like it. Yeah. Yes. We will all stay home and just be good little citizens and just lose.
Yep. Just be propagandized and, neutralized, I think, is the term that they like to use. You be neutralized. You won't interfere with their affairs and their plans and machinations.
How dare we? They just put us in our place. So like I've said, I take it day by day. Honestly, I didn't even watch the news today. I was so busy doing my Star Trek. God, so terrible. Star Trek Discovery review. But it was good to take my mind off it. And if you don't watch the news, you have no idea what's going on where I am.
Yeah, I was out working and I was running errands and everybody's very polite and friendly. They're saying hello, nodding their head when you walk past. Actually, today was a pretty good day out and about. It's just, you got to have, for your mental health, I used to there was a period of time when I used to have really bad depression, and Where I'd spend like months in a funk, a horrible funk. And, eventually people, I don't know why I was an asshole, but people reached out to me and they tried to help me. And I, of course, rejected their help. And eventually, I got to a point where I was like, my way doesn't work anymore. And so I tried different things, and some people brought me to church, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool, but it's not for me. And then somebody's like, they would give a long-winded, rationalization on either going to church or different things. And then one day somebody, one of my colleagues kind of whacked me across the back of the head, and they said, Wes, you need to get your head in the game. Here, listen to these Tony Robbins CDs. And that's what I did. And it, after that, I have the tools and the skills to bring myself out of it. So, you really have to kind of have a way to bring yourself out of that negative, depressed state. Yep. And, just some things that help me, going out for just a little thing like going out for a walk works wonders. Some sort of physical activity, listening to a tune that makes you happy, little things like that. And it's just stuff that I never really thought about. And then, not dwelling on things that you don't have control over. You've got to, I call it the fix it or fuck it rule. If you can fix it, fix it. If you can't, shrug your shoulders and say, fuck it. And that's worked for me. I don't know about other people. I mean, there are different, it goes by different names. There's different methodologies to it, but that's what worked for me. And for our folks out there, you gotta have kind of the mental toughness and the fortitude, and you've got to be able to pull yourself out of it, because they want us sad and depressed and broken.
Yep. They do not want us to experience joy or have any fun. You saw when old Luke Skywalker came back, and it didn't, like I said, it didn't do anything for me, but a lot of people had fun watching that. It's just fucking let them, it's just that right now it's such a crappy time that we need people to have that. And this is going to have long lasting effects on an entire generation. I'm sure, the author Stephen Walton's out there. He's got a kid. I got a kid. Anybody with kids right now knows that this is going to take time. We're going to have to work with our kids. I mean, it's not like business as usual if things open up. We're going to have to sit down and talk to our kids and work them through this, because most of them are probably not saying very much. They're probably scared to death inside. So it's going to be kind of up to us to work them through that. And you know what? We don't have time as parents to break down or stress out. That's hell no. We've got to maintain the strong appearance, whether it's real or not, because we can't freak them out even more. And that's practicing, I'm in recovery. So I've got, I was provided the tools through recovery through AA and NA, which is life school. I recommend it for everybody. You don't have to be addicted to a drug. You go to a meeting, and the meetings are great. It's great. Once you start working the steps, it is a way to maintain your life school. Basically, you always have to do a little work on yourself, because those bad habits, bad character traits come back real easily. So my sponsor always has me do my steps once a year, and I work through and then we do micro step. We work through, not in order, but we work through specific steps throughout the year, and that keeps keeps me in check. And it's really simple stuff that sounds cringe as hell, and I understand that, but writing a gratitude list is probably the most important thing you can do right now. You just wake up in the morning, write down and you throw it away, just write down 5 things you're grateful for. But then it's in your head at the beginning of the day. And, as crappy as 2020 was, I like I've said, it's not my worst year. I've had much worse personally. Might be a bad year for the country, but wasn't my personal worst. And I had some good times, especially, through YouTube and live streams and stuff, and Friday Night Tights. Had a blast with those guys. And you make the best out of it. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are now having to experience what confinement is. Now, it's not true confinement. It's not like what the people on the cruise ships were experiencing, which is essentially what probably what being in prison is like, the people who are quarantined on the cruise ships, who are only let out of their rooms once a day, and these little rooms. That's what it's like being locked up, and it F's with your brain so much. And my hope is that once this is all over, people are a little more grateful for some of their freedoms and they're not so willing to lose them. But if you keep people confined and they don't get to experience them, you're gonna whittle them down, right? And they're gonna be much more willing to give up more rights just to get some back. That's my concern. So you got to balance it by not letting the depression kick in. You got to not letting them get you down, but be willing to, fight when you need to. And I mean, Mama Susan, going through the legal means. The very important thing for all these politicians over the next 4 years is to maintain control. Well, what gets a politician out of office quicker than anything, this side of a scandal, is the economy. Economy. So unless we have a really good economy over the next 4 years, not many of these politicians will be surviving.
Let's hope not. Yeah, I think that, if provided, President Trump is still around in 2 years, that's another concern. But if he is, hopefully he'll primary all of these people, and he'll recruit candidates and get them primaried on the federal level. And on the state level, you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to look up who these people are. You look at it, Harvard, Yale, part of this association. Oh, you wrote a paper on this. Okay, well, you're not maybe you're from the hometown, but you're not working for the hometown.
Right. It's going to be impossible to predict what's going to happen with that. I just know that, not getting too deep into it, that like the two-party system, I mean, I don't want one party controlling everything. Hell no. I want more parties. I want more parties that are legit, and some that aren't, like the Libertarian Party tends to go a little crazy. So that's why they're not taken seriously, which they've had so many opportunities to grow legitimately, and they always there's somebody doing something stupid. And we're fighting entrenched institutions. Like, it's going to take a whole hell of a lot of us to change anything. And again, we're going to have to give up some conveniences to do so. Like, personally, just a little thing. What I'm doing is I am using Amazon a lot less.
Yeah. Like,
I am, unless I absolutely need it through Amazon, I ain't touching it through Amazon anymore. I'm done giving Bezos money. So I'm going to go, and it's a pain in the ass, and that's good. I'm going to go to a local business. I'll wait a few extra days to get whatever I need. And that's fine, as long as I'm helping a person, like an actual person. Bezos is going to be fine.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. You know what? There's a lot of really good, even just like, secondhand stores around here that I can always find really cool physical media stuff. Yep. Like I found the DVD of the Watchmen movie for like 99 cents. I was like, I'm getting awesome. Yep.
And you won't be, and then someday you won't be able to get that, because I'm surprised they didn't do it sooner, to be honest with you. But with the streaming services, it's exclusivity. That's going to be the one thing that keeps them around. I took my kid out driving without a permit because he can't.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No, take your kid out driving. If people can riot, I can still teach them to drive. Got to try to be normal, especially if you have teens. Yes, especially with teens. I got a 15-year-old right now. Yeah, this is going to be, man, we got a whole generation that's going to be messed up from this unless we do our job as parents. And we can't sit there and blame it on the situation. The situation, it's an absolute. It happened. Okay, so we can't say, well, it was just a coof. I mean, people are going to be blaming stuff on the coof for the rest of our lives. And as parents, we can't do that. That's quite the cop out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boy, when I was a kid and I learned how to drive, my parents made me learn how to drive on a stick. They said, you're not allowed to drive an automatic until you learn how to drive a stick. You need to know how to drive everything.
Yep. That's what I learned on. Well, I snuck out my dad's car and he had a stick. So I had to learn.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go out and party, I had to learn. And that's great motivation to learn it in a night.
Or PJ says, me too. Yep. Yeah. I'm surprised. I used to have like a Mustang GT, right? And it was a stick. And I took it to get the oil changed, and they had to like find somebody that knew how to drive a stick. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, everybody here doesn't know how to drive a stick?
Oh, most people don't anymore.
Like basic life skills is what I think that is. All right.
Well, we won't be able to drive very much soon. So there's no more combustion engines in California in 2035.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an unconstitutional, illegal executive order.
Yep.
Yeah. I would prefer a better one, like maybe observing federal standards and getting rid of the funky gas we have. I mean, that would be a legal one you could do.
Yeah. Well, let's see if they start implementing that for their own buses. You know, because a lot of our buses still run on diesel and stuff, which throws all kinds of particulates in the air.
Culture Casino says there will still be combustion vehicles in 2077.
There will. They say 2035, but I mean, vehicle. Okay, the Tesla, and not until you can drive cross country on one. You can't be stopping every 2 hours to charge. When Mrs. Nerdrotic was looking for a car, I thought about a Tesla for about a nanosecond. I'm like, nah, total waste of money. A used one, but still.
Oh man, can you imagine getting stuck on the grapevine, running out of juice on that thing?
Hell
Yikes.
No. Hell no.
Alrighty, well, we've been going for about an hour and a half here. I think we can go longer if you want to. Or if you're running out of gas.
A few more minutes. I got to get back to my video here. I got to get it out tomorrow. It's been a beast. I've been working on it for 4 days.
Star Trek. I had to give up. I couldn't continue watching it. I think my breaking point was when they brought back the hologram of Leonard Nimoy. I was really offended by that.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, like, I don't even know if that's going to make it in my review. There's so much stupid in that show. It's impossible to get it in a review in a timely fashion. Right now it's booking 25 minutes, which is long. There's a long review, but it's an entire season I'm covering. But it gets way worse when it's funny because I'm basing my review around a Polygon article that's like just totally critical of the show. And the fact is, like, the show is made for Polygon. It's like, that's who you made the show for, was Polygon, and they hate it. And we both come to completely different conclusions. Polygon says they didn't go far enough. And I'm like, this is shit. So hopefully it comes out coherent. You never know till you release the video. It sounds coherent to me, but sometimes, I'm not the best judge of that. But yeah, Star Trek Discovery season 3 was its worst season by far. The acting was horrific. The directing was horrific. The catering sucked. Everything about this show is awful. It's a platform. It's used to push identity politics, intersectionalism. It's there purely for propaganda. It plays like a horrible freaking PBS show, like Saturday morning live action crap you used to see. It's even worse than that. And they bring in the non-binary actors, and they do nothing with them. One of them is a Trill, is a human host for a Trill symbiote, So you got a 16-year-old with a Trill symbiote. And there's a million things you can do with that. You can have this like really wise 16-year-old. But you have to get the right actor, right? No, what they did was they cast everybody by race first. So we got Reese, who was the best Asian guy out of the Asian group we picked. We got Joan, who was the best black woman out of the black women we picked. And then we have Detmer, who was, I guess, the best redhead, who, just looks like she's a model. And none of them were supposed to act originally. I think they were all supposed to be background. And then they realized they couldn't rely on Sonequa Martin Green's acting prowess for the show. So they needed to give her, they do listen to the criticism. They absolutely do, because each season changes drastically. And it's almost like they're listening to the criticism, but they still want to do it their way. So they're like, okay, we'll make it an ensemble, because Star Trek is an ensemble piece. It's not the Captain Kirk show. It's not the Picard show. It's Star Trek. There's, a strong supporting cast of characters. None of this stuff would have worked without a McCoy, without a Geordie LaForge, without a 7 of 9. But it's still the Michael Burnham show. And to give you a little spoiler, so I map out the hero's journey finally, because you got Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, which is the call. Well, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like call to action, and then into the darkness, and then redemption or something like that. And then it's like a circle, and you got your mentor in there. And the hero's journey is the hero was right all along. And it takes the rest of the cast, the whatever amount of seasons you're on, to catch up to so with Michael Burnham, it's the hero's journey is you just should have listened to Michael Burnham, because she was right all along. And that's how it plays out. None of the characters, no character arcs. Like, everybody acts exactly the same way now than they did 2 years ago. Well, 2 seasons ago. It's actually 4 years ago. It's astonishing how same and bad it is. It takes an awful lot of work.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. I always find myself rooting for the villains. I was like, Lorca's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then when the Orion chick showed up, the green lady, she's like, yeah, here's the thing. Capitalism, it already exists. We need to recognize it. And we want to become a part of the Federation. And I'm like, yeah, take the deal. She's right.
She was. And as called it, it really exposed the SJW-ness of the show by wanting to punish the person who just made all the concessions in the world and gave you a thing that made the most sense, that would have worked. They would have shared their technology. It would have fed more people. And they actually took the dumber approach, where more people are going to suffer. We're going to have to wait. And by the way, it keeps them in control. They are going to control the resources. So it's up to the Admiral and Michael Burnham how much dilithium these planets get. Well, who put them in charge? The Federation lost power. These people didn't join the Federation, so the Federation just strong-armed their way in. And they're responsible for the problem. They're the ones who caused it. The burn. Well, the one who caused the burn was a special needs Kelpian.
I wouldn't have called that. I really for sure thought that they would have. Again, I'm underestimating how stupid they are, because I thought, there would have been timey-wimey or Michael Burnham causing the burn. A retarded Kelpian. I'm sorry. A special. Well,
I want to hold back. I'm on some
temper tantrum.
So. It was something else to see. And I thought they would kind of undo it with some time stuff too. But no, this is how the Federation ends. So what this show did was put an expiration date on Star Trek. So what you had Kurtzman do was almost not as bad as what Chibnall did with Doctor Who, but he did it almost as bad in the reversed fashion. He ended every story. So where this journey ends. So any Star Trek you make prior to this is going to end there, is going to end with the burn, with the Federation falling apart, not exploring anymore, and Earth becoming isolationist. And the Romulan and Vulcan story ending, and they're kind of at a, there's peace, but they don't really, they haven't grown. Nobody's grown. They all digressed, and the Orions enslaved people, which is supposed to be ironic, I guess. But no, and all the reason they did that, there's three major aspects they did covering season 3, which was it was resource scarcity, identity politics, and mental illness. And I think they covered mental illness pretty well, because they showed how the entire crew is pretty mentally ill. There's no way of coping with it or anything. They just showed that there's a bunch of mentally ill people running around in space.
For sure.
And almost every episode was concluded with, they should have talked to Michael Burnham. Like the Earth episode, which was, they're isolationist, and there's some raiders coming to take the dilithium that Earth doesn't even use. They just hoard it. And you find out that this raider is actually a human from Titan, and they ripped off the entire story from Expanse. And they were fighting because they didn't communicate, because apparently their radios don't work. And it took Michael Burnham unmasking this raider to find out that he was a human all along, and he tried to call Earth, but they wouldn't pick up the phone. So for 100 years they fought until they met Michael Burnham, whose big suggestion was, maybe you guys should talk. I wanted to bang my head against the desk, because I watched that episode again today. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, as soon as they made him evil white dude, honestly, Jesus Christ, getting PTSD right now.
And then the whole gender identity thing was a joke, and even the Polygon called them out for it as a giant virtue signal, which that's all it was. They didn't do anything with the characters, and the reason they had to do that, they were trying to make it sound like it was some big allegory. If she had a ghost boyfriend, meaning that boyfriend wasn't seen, and identity, blah blah blah. No, it was, this person's acting ability was extremely limited, so they can only have them act with each other, because they're so bad. They are so horrible because they chose them on their identity and not on their talent. It shows. It's horrifically bad. Like, I can't put it into words. Like, how
oh God. See, I'm trying to think of how to do a review, and I can't even, there's no discernible plot really to, there's just moments of stupidity that I think I'm just going to have to be as random as they were with their story. But one of the things, okay, yeah, now that you mentioned it, the non-binary characters, okay, so they stopped the show, and she says, ever since I was young, I've always felt this way. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm like, okay, is this going to be a good writer would say it's an allegory for her trillness? But that's, Stamps is like, okay. And I'm like, what? My cringe muscle, went into overload when that happened. I was like, okay, I mean, that's fine, but make it an allegory for her trillness, explain it maybe. I mean, like, I just think, hey, this lady's crazy.
And they all are. That's the answer. Is they're all very. It's a reflection of the writer's room, which is filled with neurotic Hollywood types, who, nobody in real life calls each other Latinx and talks about pronouns. And I've talked about that. I've lived in California my entire life. I lived in San Francisco for 18 years. I served the public of San Francisco at a comic shop for 10 years. And I served many transgendered and non-binaries. And not once did I come across a situation where I had to be corrected on pronouns. You want to know why? Because I learned their name. I learned their name, and that solves the problem. Once I know your name, I don't need to know your pronouns, because I will call you by your name. That's Bill's purse over there. I don't need to say that's his or her or they or them. I can just say it's Bill's.
Yep. See, that's a large part of what we're facing: individualism versus collectivism.
Yep.
And it's recognizing that each individual, there's no one that's ever been like you or ever will be like you ever in the history of the universe. And to recognize that specialness and to show the respect for the individual. And they're just trying to say, well, you're in this group, you're in that group, you tick this box, you tick that box. And just an aside here, the Latinx thing, dude, gender is an intrinsic part of Spanish.
Yep.
And I know a lot of Latinos that are very upset by that Latinx stuff.
I don't think any of them like it. It's just it's a Marin mom Hollywood type thing. People with a lot of time in their hands.
Collective insanity and self-feeding indeed. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something. I think these people are crazy. I think that if they weren't connected, they would be like the cat lady at the bus stop, or I'm sorry, the bag lady at a bus stop, like talking to her cat that's died like 3 weeks ago in a shopping cart.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Like, you're a boy cat now. No, you're a girl. No, did I get your gender wrong? You know, just like, lady, I'm just waiting for the bus. Okay, leave me alone. Girthy Guitarist says, same here, Gary. I worked in Hollywood briefly after film school, and the weirdos are the talentless writers.
Yep. There's normal people there too, but it's filled with well, it's just the politics. It's all fear-based. There's a lot of fear in Hollywood, fear of losing your job, fear of looking bad, and then the people in power are just insane. They're all kings of their own little fiefdoms, kings and queens of their own little fiefdoms, and that's why they identify with dictators so much down there. Really respect and admire them.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if you caught this or if you're aware of it. Okay, the guy that plays the guy with the glasses, right, in season 3. Shoot, was he the Section 32? They never identified him as Section 32, I don't think.
David Cronenberg. Yeah.
He looks suspiciously like Lou Wasserman, who was like mafia that ran Hollywood, that a lot of people were afraid of. Johnny Carson was afraid of him. Robert Zemeckis in the Back to the Future 2 or 3 commentary was talking about being afraid of Lou Wasserman. It was very interesting. And I guess he gave Spielberg his start. And, you have the replicative cloning where, Spielberg to JJ to Kurtzman. So I kind of wondered if he was purposefully modeled on Lou Wasserman.
Maybe. I just know that's what Cronenberg didn't even want to like take his glasses off for the role. I love David Cronenberg though. That was like the one, I can't believe he was in it. It's so weird. It's so random.
Yeah, he did a good job with it. With, crap. God, I'm getting PTSD again. Yeah. I mean, PTSD. I just want good Star Trek.
We're a long way from that. That's not going to happen anytime. I think out of all of the franchises, this will be the one that they probably erase. That's the only I could see him doing it. It's such a hot mess. Just put it in the Kelvin timeline and move on.
Yeah. I tell you, a year ago, I thought that Trek had the best chance of coming out of this, if better than Star Wars, and now Star Wars with the Mandalorian, it looks like it's in better shape. It looks like I still think Doctor Who's probably the worst off, but I don't know. What's your ranking on those now? Which one's worse off?
Doctor Who's the worst off by far. Star Trek is second, and Star Wars has potential, has a glimmer of hope. I wouldn't put too much into it, but there's a glimmer there. I think there is. I think as long as Jon Favreau's there, sure. I just don't think he'll stay there forever. That's the problem, because they would need Jon Favreau to be there for like 10 years. I can't see him staying there for 10 years. unless they put him in a position of power. And I don't know if that's what he wants, because I think he likes directing film. So,
yeah. Plus, he's talented, and that doesn't seem to really go over too well in Hollywood.
well, and the Kathleen Kennedy thing is, she's the boss, and she did hire him, but he is amassing power like Kevin Feige amassed power at Marvel when he was just simply a producer, part of the team when the MCU started, and then he became the boss because he systematically got rid of people like John Favreau. Now, John Favreau did himself in with Iron Man 2 a little bit, but we'll see. As long as he's there, there's hope. He leaves, abandon it, especially if Kathleen's still there. And her contract is up like this month.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere.
Got what, the 28th? Is that when she's leaving?
That's when the contract is up. We'll see if she leaves. I don't think so.
Oh, man. For a woman, she sure does swing her dick around a lot.
She does.
Girthy Guitarist says, Star Wars changed my life at a time I needed it as a boy. Luke was my hero for 40 plus years, and I'm so glad I got a moment to at least wash out the green soy milk. But all is not forgiven.
Yeah. We showed them. We showed them what we want. Now, will they give it to us? We'll see. But they bought a lot of time and goodwill with that. So that's what's the term I want to use? That's the precarious situation we're in as a fandom. We want to show joy. We want to show love. But if we show too much, they might be emboldened to continue with what they were doing and not get the message that we were sending. Hollywood tends to like to believe that they were right. And I think there's a lot of people who probably went, oh, it didn't take much to get a lot of people back. And no, it really didn't. That's the truth.
Yep. Like,
it was a very simple thing that they needed to do from the get-go. It cost them billions of dollars. It's a huge mistake. What did, I think, affect some change was Pablo Hidalgo popping off to Theory and then it getting written up and embarrassing the shit out of Disney. That got their attention. They do not like being embarrassed. And, the Phantom Menace was embarrassing the shit out of them for 2 years straight, but they were able to compartmentalize us for the most part. And until they made something new, what ends up being their worst enemy. It's same with Kurtzman, same with Chibnall, is it's not the critics. We're just going to react to what we were given. It's Chibnall, it's Kurtzman. The worst thing that can happen to Star Trek is to have Kurtzman make more of it. And they continue to let him make more of it. That destroys the brand. It's not Doomcock. It's not me. It's not anybody else. It's Kurtzman.
Yep. I still, any of the Drekkies that interact with me, they still can't tell me what they like about the show, who their favorite character is, what their favorite episode is, and how it makes them feel.
No, they can just talk about the critics and make excuses for the show.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not going to talk to you, racist. Oh, shit, I said the word. God damn it. Oh, well. And I'm like, it's not the nuclear codes, man. It's a TV show. Or man, woman, child, Zer, she, it, they. I don't know.
So it's the 22nd. Oh, there you go.
But it's not the nuclear codes. It's a show. You can tell people what you like about it.
The kings of failing upward, Dalim.
For sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with KK. I don't know. She's very well connected.
Anointed by Lucas and Spielberg. That's a powerful thing. It is a powerful thing. All right, it's 10 o'clock. I got to bug out. I got to eat.
All right. Before you go, I know we do a little bit of a hazing ritual, and we did it on Bear's show, but this is a classic. we were able to do the hazing ritual to the Facebook fact checker. So I want your reaction to that. Here we go.
Let's do this again.
For sure, absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead and before I let you go, got a hazing ritual here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna show you something, and I want you to tell me if you see anything. Is it?
Well, let me make
is
you
it
bigger here.
okay? Yeah. Hold on. Let me get the chat out of the bottom here. So I want you to look at the woman in the white pants. Is anything jump out at you?
That is not Michael Obama. That is Michelle Obama. I have fact-checked that many, many times. She does not have a penis.
Gotcha. Do you see anything there, though?
There is not a penis there.
Any
I
idea?
can't say that about Ellen, but I can.
Any
Michelle,
idea?
let me tell you, a lot of the stuff that is out there making that allegation is photoshopped. I'm not saying that this particular one is. I don't know. I don't know enough about women's undergarments. I've got a little bit experience with genitalia, a little, but I'm not going to dissect. I just think this is mean, frankly. She's not a woman.
You heard it.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Fact checked by the fact checker himself.
That's what he said at the end.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Gary, man. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Wes. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Hope you're all doing well. And yeah, I need to eat.
All right.
Been in this studio all damn day. So it was a pleasure, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Everybody be well. Subscribe to Wes Moody.
Thank you.
Take it easy, brother.
All right. We'll see you, Gary. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, appreciate you all coming here and hanging out with me. You are the best chat on YouTube. I loved having you here tonight. This was great hanging out. And like you've seen here, I'd be honored if you consider liking the video, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to ring the bell to maybe get notifications. And I guess with that, we will see ya.